Members of the committee. My name is Debra Fitzpatrick, and I'm the director of the Center on Women in Public Policy at the Humphrey Institute, the University of Minnesota. The Wage Project estimates that over the course of her lifetime, a woman will earn $1 million less than a man simply because she is a woman. For women who graduate from professional schools, that number can climb to $2 million. Today, I would like to share some data related to the prevalence of the pay gap right here in Minnesota. Progress has been slow since Congress recognized the concept of equal pay for equal work in the 1963 Equal Pay Act. The gap in Minnesota and nationally actually grew slightly from 2007 to 2008, from the 21 cents that both Amy and Patty mentioned to 76 cents on a man's dollar in 2008. In Minnesota, the gap exists in every occupation, including those dominated by women. For example, as the first table in your handout shows, in education, the gap is 22 cents on the dollar, 12 cents in community and social service fields, and 11 cents in the healthcare support sector. The largest gaps are found in transportation and material moving at 49 cents, legal occupations at 47 cents, sales at 34 cents, and healthcare practitioners at 38 cents. The wage gap grows over a woman's life. In Minnesota, it starts out at 5% among 19 to 24-year-olds and grows to 26% among 51 to 64-year-olds. In their negotiation trainings for young women, the Wage Project shows how small differences in salary right out of college compound over time, as bonuses and raises are based on a person's base salary. Several studies show that women are less likely than men to negotiate for salaries and other benefits, but even when they do negotiate, they are more often penalized. Assertiveness is often perceived as desirable in men, but not in women. Studies in several sectors also show that gender stereotypes result in lower promotion levels for women, which also leads to greater disparities over time. The gap is in place across education levels. Although it is smaller for Minnesota women with doctorate degrees, it is the largest for women with professional degrees. The gap is present across the state, from a high of 30 cents on the dollar to a low of 16 cents on the dollar. Generally, rural areas of the state have a higher gap than the Twin Cities, but it's prevalent everywhere. Some call it the mom bomb and others the maternal wall, but whatever you call it, evidence is mounting that the wage gap is not just about being a woman. Being a mother carries a much heavier wage penalty than being a father. A study conducted by Harvard School of Business in 2004 found that when women give birth, their colleagues view them as kinder, gentler, and less capable. For men who become fathers, warmth ratings also increase, but their competence levels remain unchanged. A national study conducted by the GAO found that being a parent held women back. After having children, income levels of fathers increased and income levels of mothers decreased. Our analysis of American Community Survey data shown in your handout for Minnesota show that earnings for mothers that continue to work full-time year-round remain about equal whether or not there are children, but fathers earn more than men without children, and the earnings gap increases along with the number of children in the home. Now, there are many factors that affect wages, including demographics such as race and parental status, and work-related factors such as occupation, employer, and hours worked. When the Federal Government Accounting Office controlled for these factors and others, such as type of position, job tenure, and workforce absences, they concluded, even after accounting for key factors that affect earnings, our model could not explain all of the difference in earnings between men and women. Some studies place the percentage of unexplainable difference as high as 40%. For researchers and groups as diverse as the GAO and the National Committee on Pay Equity, the remaining gap is at least in part attributable to some form of discrimination, including sexism. Discrimination based on stereotypes is an important aspect of wage inequity. A growing body of research that Jill alluded to earlier documents the presence of implicit or unconscious bias based on gender, race, and other issues. I already mentioned research on parenthood. Stereotypical ideas about leadership and gender also have an important impact on women's wages and their chances for promotion. Several studies have looked at how men and women job or promotion seekers are assessed by assigning male and female names to the same resume or adding elements to the resume that suggest motherhood or fatherhood. Researchers have shown that men are rated more highly for the same resume and that women in general, but especially those that present as mothers, are penalized with lower ratings for the exact same experiences and background. The breadwinner stereotype is also alive and well, both unconsciously and overtly. Plaintiffs still report that they are told they don't make as much as men because the men have families to support. Our research shows that 4 in 10 Minnesota women are now the primary, 4 in 10 Minnesota mothers are now the primary breadwinner in their family. A majority in some communities of color hold this status. However, this stereotype persists and still results in lower pay in some circumstances. So given the pervasive and tenacious nature of wage inequities in Minnesota, we need every tool possible, as Amy mentioned. A constitutional amendment makes an important statement about the state's ongoing commitment to equality for men and women and adds one more important tool for those who are working to make this ideal a reality. Thank you very much.
Questions? Ms. Fitzpatrick, I'm intrigued by the womb wall research that you did. I know that in the legal profession, and I think in the law firm setting, at least my cohort of women lawyers were concerned that because the partnership ladder is sometimes dependent on the length of time you've put into the firm. Right. And so in some ways, the womb disadvantage is that oftentimes on the same trajectory as a male colleague, that if I have to take 3 to 6 months off for maternity leave before I come back, that somehow I'm 6 months behind my colleague in the same trajectory. And while we can't unhook the womb and transfer it to our male colleagues, although it'd be an interesting research project, how have other nations dealt with this? Is it because men are giving comparable womb leaves so that we're all in the same kind of time slot? I mean, I'm curious about how this plays out in other countries, or what would be a practical public policy solution to that other than taking off the womb?
Well, I'm not an expert on what other countries have done on this issue, but I guess in general I would say, I'd just go back to your point about other countries, some other countries anyway, have situations that allow women to continue their jobs and not take as much time out of the workforce, because the workforce situation is more flexible, has paid leave opportunities for both men and women, and those kinds of issues. I would just say that, again, the GAO and others have tried to control for those issues about how the issues of motherhood might be affected, or how time out of the workforce affects the wage earnings, and have found that even when they control for those issues, you still have the gap. So,
thank you.